Okay, good evening. Good evening. We're going to try to keep us in our time frame of our 30 minutes. Glad so many of you are able to come out this evening. We're having a little technical difficulty, and that's unfortunate because I had a wonderful PowerPoint to share with you, but I will go ahead and we'll get started and we'll see if we can't pull it up at some point. We've normally been able to do PowerPoints. We've normally been able to do PowerPoints on the screen. I guess they're calling Tim back there to lay hands now. So. Huh? You heard him say that all the way up there? No. That's just the spirit working. But again, so glad each of you are able to come out this evening. This program put together by the Save Ackworth History Foundation. Becca Keno is president. Becca asked if we could change the date. The date originally was October the 2nd, but again, something came up. And so she asked if we could do it either on the 7th or the 9th of this month, so Reverend Tim Houston could be here with us. And so again, we're so glad that each of you are here. I asked Becca if she would to go ahead and also just introduce some of those who are on the Save Ackworth History Foundation board, as well as those who are into the history of Ackworth. We also have, in addition to our elected official, Tim Houston, and other elected officials. But Becca, I'm gonna ask you if you'll come up and just introduce as many of those that you can see.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Okay, our board members, we have several board members here. In the front row, we have Kurt Johnson and his wife, Elaine. And my husband, Rick Keenel, is here. And we have Alderman Tim Richardson, who is our liaison with the city. And then we have Andrew Bramlett, who is our archivist, who takes all of our pictures and videos. And his parents, Lewis and Beth Bramlett. Lewis is our board member. And Bill Hamilton is our other board member. I think that's everybody I know. And thank you so much for having us tonight. And thank you, Dr. Johnson, for doing this. We certainly appreciate it.
As many of you probably know, as you would drive around Ackworth, you will see a number of storyboards. Storyboards that, well, maybe I'll let Tim come down and tell that part. Come on down, Tim. Share the love, share the love.
I don't think I was supposed to talk, but I'm not very good at public speaking. But what Pastor Johnson was talking about, if you go throughout the city, you'll see these storyboards, and the Save Ackworth History Foundation has done a great job in telling Ackworth's story. And you'll see the storyboard, like Zion Hill had one, the first ones was at the Door Hill Park, when they told the story of the black community down there. They were responsible for some of those, and they partnered with Kennesaw State to do these things. And I have to give them credit. They've done a great job at telling the history. With that said, if you got a story that you need to tell, get with them. If you know some history, get in contact with them, because we're still missing a lot. I'm not that old, so I can tell y'all a lot of the history that we need in our community. But the storyboards are very important. They done, this last time they done all the churches, all those historical churches in the community. But they do a lot at the park. If you go around, you see them, just stop and read it. And it'll tell the story and the history of Ackworth. And Ackworth has a great story to tell. So we've always been an inclusive community, a great community to live in. So we want to continue to keep it like that, okay? And so telling the history is a part of that. You know, it said if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. I just want to make sure y'all do that. But that's it, man. Thank you.
In fact, you will also notice that there's a storyboard up at the old mill as well. So there are several sites around the city where you will see these storyboards. Well, I'll get started. The history of Zion Hill. It's a long history, and basically what I did was just put it in a capsule to tell that history. If you would have been able to have seen the slides that we have that I put together here, and this is just my narrative, and I'll go through it as the slides would have been. It says, the history of Zion Hill cannot be told accurately without the arrival of General William T. Sherman and his troops in the city. Mark Lemon, descendant of the Lemon family in Ackworth, recalled hearing the story of how his great-grandmother, Mrs. Eliza Jane Davenport Lemon, wife of Captain James Lyle Lemon, citizen soldier of the Southern Confederacy, stood up to Sherman and vowed not to leave her home. Eliza Lemon stayed in her home with her 2-year-old daughter Sarah and her free black former slaves. Captain Lemon had freed his 7 slaves in 1856. Those who were remaining were paid employees, and one can assume that some of those former slaves were in the founding group of Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church in Ackworth. Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church historical sketch in September of 1864 under the pastorate of Reverend Jerry Jones. Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church was founded by former slaves. Mother Evelyn May Holmes Gregg, who was born in 1907 and passed away in 2011 at the age of 103, remembers telling the story of how Zion Hill first worshiped near Liberty Hill Cemetery. There's a road, she recalled, on the back end, the end of the cemetery, that's where she said the blacks lived. She said that they were back in the backwoods, and this was a stone's throw from where the Lemon House is located. Now, I bring all of this together because if you look at 1864, that was at the close of the American Civil War. Typical baptisms, and I was able to, I have a picture hanging in the foyer of my home that came out of Harper's Bazaar magazine, Harper's Magazine of 1887. And 1887, individuals were baptized in creeks or the lake or in rivers. And so I had a picture of, again, what a typical baptism would have been. And this was a baptism of early freely emancipated slaves. It says, with Zion Hill being located in close proximity of Lake Ackworth and Tanyard Creek, one can imagine that baptisms took place in the nearby lake or creek. Prince G. Young was listed in the Marietta Directory of 1880 as a colored waiter in the Kennesaw House. In 1916, he was a deacon here at Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church. Again, I had a picture of what old Zion Hill looked like. It says Zion Hill then moved from the backwoods into a building, and these are all accounts from Mother Evelyn Gregg. She said Zion Hill then moved from the backwoods near the cemetery into a building about a mile from downtown Ackworth on Southside Drive, where the road turns to Old Highway 41 and Cowan Road, where there's a fire station located today. So that's where the original building for Zion Hill was located. Ironically, that building was burned down under suspicious circumstances in the early 1900s, and through perseverance and prayer, Zion Hill, the Zion Hill congregation, was able to move into the current location and building right here on Taylor Street in 1914, free of debt, under the leadership of Reverend S.H. Jackson. The original building was a wooden frame, and that wooden frame is still here. It was just recent, not recently, but like Reverend Houston said, it goes way back before us probably. That wooden frame was enclosed with the bricks that you see. So this building is well over 100 years old. Those bricks that you see out there are well over 100 years old. In the basement, what they also did is to have a kitchen and a place for study. They literally dug out under this church. Men would come in and they, with their hands and shovels, they would dig out the dirt that was under the church. They were able to prop it up with beams under it. While they were doing, again, this work, the women of the church would bring them lunch and refreshments throughout the day. And they finished, again, what's downstairs under the basement, again, with, again, the handiwork of the individuals who attended Zion Hill. The builders and the founders built this very sanctuary through rough, unfinished lumber, which was also used to make the pews and window shutters. The church deacons would make sure that the church was always ready for worship service on Sundays by getting the wood burning stove hot in the winter so worshipers could stay warm. This was long before we had central air conditioning and heating, outdoor toilets. In fact, I was told that Zion Hill had a double out, which meant that it wasn't just a single outhouse, but it was a double outhouse that Zion Hill had. It says they would ring the old church bell, which is still in the church tower, when a worship service would begin. Church members and individuals would walk for miles. Deacon Claude Johnson reminded me that he was from Mars Hill, and he said individuals would come from as far as Mars Hill, a distance from the church, for worship service. And they brought oil lanterns to light their path when darkness fell on their way home from church. Mother Flo Bates reminded me also, they were basically in church all day. They had Sunday school, BTU. They also had church service, and afterwards they had dinner. And then after dinner, they had an evening service. So they literally were in church all day long. And there were some pictures that went along with these here. It says the 10th pastor of Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church, the one that you'll see on the storyboard that's outside there, was an itinerant minister. Members of churches, whether it was Bethel or Zion Hill, Bethel worshiped on 1st and 3rd, Zion Hill worshiped on 2nd and 4th Sundays, and they had what's called itinerant ministers. The individual who's on the board outside was pastor of 3 churches during the time that he was pastor of Zion Hill. He was pastor of, again, Jehovah Baptist Church in Grant, Georgia, Mount Gilead Baptist Church on Spencer Street in Atlanta, and of course Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church here in Acworth. And that went on for quite a while, where you had these itinerant ministers who traveled, and I'm sure they either traveled on horseback or they had carriages that they were on riding during those days. During those days also, many of you know where Claude and Willie Mae live. Right next to them is a little white house. That White House there used to be the parsonage for the ministers here at Zion Hill. So when they would come to Zion Hill for their weekend visits to preach, that's where the ministers would stay. Pastors of service include, again, Reverend Jerry Jones, beginning in September of 1864, Reverend S.H. Jackson in 1914, Reverend W.J. White, 1916, Reverend Cyrus Brown, Reverend Daniel Humphreys, Reverend W.F. Pascal, Reverend C.R. Weldon, Reverend S.G. Gore, Reverend L.H. Barber in the early 1920s to the early 1930s, Reverend J.H. Daniel, early 1930s to early 1940s, Reverend P.S. Williams, early 1940s to 1965, Reverend J.C. Carter, 1965 to 1969, Reverend James O. Montfort, 1969 to 1982, Reverend Leon Bradshaw, 1983 to 1987, Reverend Moreland Sparks, 1988 to well, he was here for 6 months.
Yeah.
He was here for 6 months. Reverend Roger Walker from 1988 to 1991. You then, I believe after that, had Reverend Brown, and then I came in after Reverend Brown. I believe Reverend Brown was here from that early part of the 1990s until 2004, and I came in 2004. Mothers and deacons included Prince G. Young. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. Ernest Summerer, John Henderson, Amos Durr, who eventually became a minister, Claude Johnson, Sr., Winston McConnell, William A. Griffin, Sr., James Griffin, Sr., Larry Griffin, Howard Johnson, Lewis Curry, Odell Reddick, Daniel Hill, Doyle Hill, Richard Mullins, Calvin Cooley, Cedric Jackson, and Gary Jackson. I probably left out a couple of names there, but that's just a few of names of individuals who served as deacons. Some of the ladies who served as mothers was Evelyn Gregg, Leslie Dean Durr, Charlie Mae Griffin, Olivia Levy Ross Chestnut, Hazel Kilgore, Clara Blaylock Summerhour, Eliza May Lizzie Strickland Furr, Ethel Clement Griffin, Nellie Houston, Beely Knox, Illabelle Marchman. It's missing a couple. You also had Mother Flo Bates that was in that number. And it's again on my slides, but again, many. And then many of you see this covering out in the front that looks like it's the top or roof of a house. That's where Zion Hill used to baptize. It's the old baptismal pool. In fact, when I first arrived at Zion Hill, during warm months, I even baptized a couple of people out in that pool. The ingenuity of the individuals during those days would amaze you, because what would happen is they would take the water hose that would be connected on the side of the building here. They would, throughout the night and the day, fill that hole. That hole was probably, I'm looking at it, that hole was probably a little larger than a grave that you would put a vault in. And again, it was like a swimming pool, but somehow they did something unique where after, again, the baptisms, after a period of time, the water would just simply drain out of that baptismal pool. There was a picture there of Reverend Mumford baptizing a young congregant. I couldn't tell who exactly. Anybody know who that was?
Greg Jackson.
Greg Jackson, baptizing Greg Jackson. There's a picture there of him baptizing. Some of the other photographs that I had in there that, again, would have kept you in stitches this evening is an early photograph of Tim and Janice Houston. I'll let Tim take a look at it. of Tim and Janice Houston.
I'm not that old.
That's you.
Oh, yeah,
So some of the early, and I basically just had a couple of photographs of, again, individuals down through the years. Again, photographs of Tim and Janice, photographs of some of the deacons here at Zion Hill. There was a photograph of the Griffin family, Charlie Mae, and her children and her husband, Doyle Hill and Elnora Hill. Elnora was a mother of the church. Through the years, you had Mother Buffington, Marie Buffington. You also, let me pull up my slide over here so I can tell you exactly who some of these individuals are in some of those photographs that are there. Right back, hold on. But I apologize that, again, we aren't able to get that up for you. And at some point I'll share it with you. But again, let's see, tell you some of these individuals here. All right, and as we go through it here. Oh, and this is a piece here that I mentioned, I'll tell you a little bit earlier. It says, I mentioned the name Prince G. Young, who was listed in the 1880 directory as a colored waiter in the Kennesaw House. He was a deacon in 1916. It goes on and it says that he was married to Phillips Young, who was a slave connected to the slave owner M.T. Phillips of Ackworth. Prince was a respected painter, and he and his wife Phyllis owned a home on Taylor Street. They had 5 daughters and 1 son. Beverly is shaking her head. You want to chime in?
No. Miss Lester Dean.
Yeah. And again, it says, anything that I missed? Some of these mothers that I missed names and some of these deacons. Some of the mothers that I missed, I mentioned Evelyn Gregg, Leslie Dean Durr, Charlie Mae Griffin, Olivia, Miss Levy, Ross Chestnut, Hazel Kilgore, Clara Blaylock Summerhour, Eliza May Lizzie Strickland Furr, Ethel Clement Griffin, Nellie Houston, Beely Knox, Isabel Marchmont McConnell, Lorraine Worthy, Marie Buffington, Geneva Moore, Florence Bates, Willie Mae Johnson, Mary Jane Dodd, I think it's Ossie Roberts.
Robert?
Yeah, and Elnora Hill. Some of the names of some of the men I may have missed. I mentioned Winston McConnell, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's see the next one. Anything else? And then, like I said, down through the years, I just basically had some photographs that we're going to just go through, and you would probably recognize some of those individuals here at Zion Hill. But again, keeping within that time frame, again, of you guys being here for 30 minutes. So we're normally there about 30 minutes. I wanted to basically, again, put together, as brief, but as much of as inclusive history of Zion Hill. The one thing, again, that I learned when I came to Zion Hill, and I hear it and I heard it over and over again from, again, some of the matriarchs of Zion Hill, is that Zion Hill was always, I guess you could say, a friendly community. Blacks and whites got along together. Again, they worked along together. But again, like I say, when you go back and you look at, again, from the end of the war, and again, there's a history about the end of the war that comes through Ackworth as well. In fact, I believe in March there was a presentation that the city did about Sherman coming back through Ackworth. Again, after Sherman came through from Tennessee down to Georgia, went to the burning of Atlanta. You know, the war, I shared a picture with of the city, not a picture, but a document that in my research of, again, the war in Ackworth, and that was a document of a letter that a Union soldier wrote while he was here in Ackworth about, again, just how that war was. And there's also a letter that, again, Captain Lemon wrote, again, about the war. So again, like I say, that's the history of Zion Hill. It's a rich history, a rich legacy, one that we are proud of. And after 161 years, I guess you could say, Ackworth is still standing. It's amazing when I think about, again, this little old building has been here well over 100 years. That's, again, all I have for you. Any questions, anything, any questions, anybody want to add anything?
Did the itinerant ministers stop in the 20s, 30s?
No, itinerant ministers, I would probably say, and I guess Beverly and Tim can probably attest to that, probably in the 60s, maybe. I would say probably in the 60s. I know they were around in the 20s. I know they were around in the 30s and 40s. But yeah. And what ended up happening is once each church was able to get their own minister, annually they would get together. A lot of people used to call it homecoming. Would get together for homecoming. And what was it that they used to call it here? Was it homecoming? Historic?
Yeah, historic Black homecoming.
Yeah. And both congregations, Bethel and Zion Hill, would come together annually for that occasion. But yeah, those itinerant ministers, they would come through and they would do their thing on Sunday, and then they'd move on to the next church, and they move on to the next church. It was a circuit that they did. Most itinerant ministers only had two churches. I was amazed to see that this individual who's on the storyboard out there had three churches, and it's possible that some probably had more than three churches. But yeah, they would come only on those Sundays when they were serving here, and when they would come again, those were probably some good days because the mothers and the community would feed them well. They would put them up and house them well and treat them well, and that was probably some good cooking back then. Again, Deacon Johnson reminded me that Ackworth, well, and this whole area up here was a farming community, and he said they always had food. You know, whenever anybody slaughtered a cow or slaughtered a hog, there was enough meat to pass around to everybody, and they basically grew everything that they ate. I won't get into the details. Many of you know some of the details of Carl's daddy, but I won't get into any of those details about what he did. But if you ever saw, there was a movie that Burt Reynolds was in where he used to run something in his trunk of his car. But again, Deacon Johnson told me all about that, and he says that for some reason the revenuers could never find out where that was in their area. But again, it was a lively time, a lively history. So to answer your question, yeah, they would move on from one community to the other, and they were basically assigned to that to those churches. And I know with the Methodist, African American AMEs, what they would end up doing is they would assign a minister to do the same exact thing, go from one community to the next. That's why on second and fourth Sundays, the person who was preaching there at that church was no longer there on second and fourth Sunday because they were preaching and ministering in another town. Any other questions? Yes?
It's very story about having stained glass windows. It's a very interesting design.
Those are original.
Wow.
Everything here is original, except for the lights. Everything here is original. And I was told that the old heater that used to be here used to be at the center of the church. I imagine it was basically like a potbelly stove where you would put wood and coal in. I'm sure they didn't have a problem with coal because, as many of you probably remember back in the day when the trains would come through here with coal coal would fall off the tracks, and I'm sure as the coal fell off the tracks, people would get it and store it up for the next Sunday. They would put it there for the next Sunday. The other piece that I'll tell you about is the original church. This part here was added. This part here was added. I'm told that again, when it was added, where the pastor study is, and you'll get a chuckle out of this. I said that used to be the indoor toilet, where the current pastors study. But yeah, that was where the indoor plumbing was. That back there was added. Am I right, Tim?
The oil,
Yeah.
that I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The towers probably was at a later in the structure.
Yeah.
The bathroom was there, and they moved them out front.
Yeah. Some respect for the preachers, huh?
Well, that was added, that part was added on too, just for
Okay, and yes, any other questions? But yeah, to answer your question, pretty much everything that you see is the same. And when they added this, and you can see the difference in these windows that are here, they're darker than those that are there. But yeah, pretty much they tried to keep the decorum the same. Some of the earlier pulpit furniture, these three chairs that you see were some of the first that were added. And these that you see on the end were added later. The pews were modernized and updated. If you, for instance, I believe there's a smaller one under the garage, carport of Claude and Willie Mae, of some of those earlier structures that were handmade and hand carved. A lot of individuals who attended Zion Hill, including Reverend Durr, were carpenters. They were skilled carpenters. Reverend Durr, in his carpentry, helped to build and add additions to homes here in Ackworth. The individual that I mentioned, who again was a part of, the early stages, one of the early deacons of Zion Hill, he was, best way I could put it, an expert painter. You know, he made his living as a painter, painting throughout the city of Ackworth. So pretty much everything that those individuals needed, they had the skilled labor to do it. Interesting trivia piece as well is when Ackworth decided to build the Roberts School, and one of the mothers of the church, her son, the Roberts School was actually named after her son. But when they decided to build the Roberts School, I'm right on that, right?
Yeah, he died in the war.
Yeah. When they decided to build that, every black person attended the Rosenwald School. Rosenwald, again, of Sears and Roebuck fortune, built, as you all know, hundreds of Rosenwald schools. And as a result, when they decided to no longer use the Rosenwald School, these same individuals, plank by plank, window by window, door by door, floorboard by floorboard, removed each and every piece of the Rosenwald School and moved it to where it currently is. And without drawings, somehow they were able to put it back together, that you see down the street. So again, that's just, again, I include all of that to just tell you how those individuals from Zion Hill were able to be a part of this community. I've gone over my 30 minutes.
That's okay.
But again, thank you so much. And again, we want to thank the Save Ackworth History Foundation. Again, all right, you're going to get me into trouble because he's raising his hand over there.
And you may not be able to answer this question. Was Zion and Bethel built around the same time?
Yes.
The reason why I say that because I was walking to my car one Sunday and I happened to look over at Bethel and they're the exact same structure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I don't recall, maybe one of you know the architectural structure, but I don't recall, but during that period of time, if you look at most churches from that era, they had that same architectural structure with the two steeples on each side. And there's a name for that particular architectural structure. It just slipped in my mind right now.
I'll add one thing. I know I wasn't supposed to talk, but when you start talking about the architectural structure of it, Bethel, Zion Hill, and the Ackworth Presbyterian Church, have the same architectural structure. And in fact, Ackworth Presbyterian and Zion Hill had a fellowship way back when.
Yeah.
I think they got Ackworth Presbyterian got those documents that reference Zion Hill and them having a fellowship.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Save Ackworth History Foundation for the work that you're doing. We are so glad that you all included us in, again, the accounts of your storyboard. Please feel free to come and visit with us, worship with us at any time. Our doors are always welcome. I know, you're always welcome. Thank you.